This is Faith Under Fire. We take you straight to the voices on the front lines of religious battlegrounds. I'm news anchor Sarah Harnisch, and with me today, Executive Director of the New York Families Foundation, Jason McGuire. You were just sentenced to 8 weekends in the Livingston County Jail for a $1,300 clerical error. Tell me what happened.
We've had the Attorney General's office, Letitia James, investigating our organization for what really began 7 years ago, but intensified about three and a half years ago. We had the Attorney General's office conducting forensic audits in our organizations, our bookkeeping, our records, deep scrutiny and everything going on and anything I'm connected to. As a result of that, they found nothing in the organizations at New York Families, our nonprofits that we often hear about on Family Life. But they did find a couple of clerical errors in our election law filings for my local conservative party and for a political action committee that we used to operate. Literally, it was less than $1,300, and it wasn't even missing money. They were errors that were not properly recorded with the Board of Elections. Normally, this is the kind of thing that the Board of Elections would say, amend your reports and we'll take care of it that way. The Board of Elections didn't have any concerns over this. It really was the Attorney General's office. And we just believe that after 3.5 years of an investigation, $750,000 the state of New York spent in investigating this, that we couldn't get out of there without their requiring their pound of flesh. That was 8 weekends in jail for these 2 filing errors.
And you never went to court. You opted to settle out of court. If you're innocent, why plead guilty?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm glad you're asking that because that's the most natural question that I would have. You know, the reality is court is going to be $250,000 beyond the nearly $100,000 I've already spent on this. Frankly, I don't want to use donor dollars for that. I don't want to use my personal dollars for that. It just doesn't make sense. You know, that's the attorneys are telling us will cost for these trials if we were to move forward. And it's not that I'm not guilty. It's a technical violation to have those clerical filing errors. To have an omission on your election law report is a violation. And my board asked me that. They said, if before you do this, why are you pleading guilty? Do you feel like you're lying? I said, I don't feel like I'm lying. I just don't feel like this is the kind of thing that ever gets prosecuted at this level. But if there's a problem in something we've done, then let's make it right. And that's the position we took. The problem was not in the pleading guilty to the misdemeanors. It was what happened next. That's when the press release came out from the Attorney General's office. As soon as I agreed to plead guilty, I was in the courtroom signing the paperwork. There was a press release that went out that accused me of stealing over $16,000. That's just false. That never happened. There's nothing in the plea agreement that indicates that. My board has reviewed this. We've had multiple people look into this situation, and that's just not what happened. My attorneys asked the Attorney General's office to retract that initial press release, believing it to be an error and stating why. The Attorney General's office refused to do so. I just think that they were not satisfied with the plea agreement, knowing there was nothing there, that they really wanted to put out a larger press release that would be hurtful to my reputation across the state.
There is a pattern in New York State of going after Christian organizations, just like the case with the pregnancy care centers. But Jason, let me play devil's advocate for just a moment. Do you think that there needs to be better oversight financially in Christian groups? How do they protect themselves from an audit like this?
I'm not so sure that there needs to be greater oversight. The nonprofit organizations in New York are already overseen by the Attorney General's office, so she does have certain powers that are there. The problem is when there's an abuse of that authority, and I believe that's what happened in this and in other cases. If you're a pro-life pregnancy center in New York right now, the Attorney General's office is coming after them. She's coming after you. She's looking for information that can be used against those organizations. When you have elected officials that take very pro-abortion positions, I think that makes these organizations vulnerable to extra scrutiny. I think the oversight needs to be towards how government abuses its power, not so much the nonprofit charities are involved. And just to put a final piece on that point, remember, there were no charges regarding my nonprofit organizations. They looked at our organization, and they did not have anything chargeable there. The only thing they could find were 2 clerical errors and 2 unrelated election law filings.
Your story is on the Focus on the Family page today. The headline reading, New York Ag Weaponizes Office to Target Conservative Family Policy Council. Tony Perkins prayed with you before you had to go into your first night in jail. You have become a nationwide martyr. Do you think that this will help or hinder New York families and the work that they do?
I think short term we're taking some hits to our reputation, and obviously so. I mean, if I were to read headlines like the Attorney General's office put out, I would be concerned as well. I'm really thankful for a board that has stepped up. They've been very involved, very supportive. And I'm thankful they aren't just yes people. I mean, they're asking the hard questions. We're making sure that things are right. And that's been very, very helpful. What I hope this becomes, though, and I think it's growing into that, is people are starting to realize that the weaponization of government really is a problem. Lawfare is an issue. I am sitting in incarceration because of the lawfare that Letitia James' office is applying to myself personally and has applied to the organizations I oversee. Serving 8 weekends in jail is not Alcatraz. I'm going to survive this. We're going to be okay. We're going to get through this. But it really is important that people realize that this could be just the beginning for what's coming if the left were left unleashed across the country.
What happens next?
Well, we're going to serve out these weeks. And I tell you right now, we're kind of taking a moment over this a couple of months, and I'm praying that God will use us, use me in jail. This weekend, I start a Bible study with some of the guys in my cell block. And if I'm there, let's use it for the Lord's glory. And so that's a part of what I want to do is I want to have an opportunity just to share with folks that are there and present the gospel. As I learn and grow through this experience and begin to see some things that occur inside our jails, already I'm ticking off some things that, I would like to see that are reform issues. What can we do to improve in our criminal justice system here in New York? And so those are things that I'd like to work through. And then long term, we want to look at this weaponization, this lawfare that government has. How can we bring some of that back to where it needs to be and not just to be an unchecked power in a very one-party state?
What is the message that you want coming out of this for Christians across New York?
One of the lessons I've learned as I've walked through this process is how much I probably, and this is going to sound a little odd, hopefully people hear my heart, is you idolize your reputation. You try to cultivate this clean image. A good name is rather to be chosen. But at the end of the day, I don't ultimately control that. Someone can make a false charge and my reputation can take a hit. So my integrity, my character matters, but ultimately I can't worship a reputation. I just have to follow after the Lord. So one of the things I've had to lay down at the altar as I go into jail is that, guards and others and, certain people in the public are going to believe certain things about me. I'm not the first to have gone through that. There's a lot of biblical examples of people who have also been falsely accused that have gone down that road. And it causes one to press further into the Lord and say, okay, I don't know why I'm going through this. I don't understand this. But Father, I'm thankful that you know the truth. The truth always prevails, and that I am not walking this path alone.
Learn more at newyorkfamilies.org.